In recent years, the Beijing government has praised the automobile industry, particularly electric vehicles, as a new pillar to replace real estate. However, by the end of 2025, the curtain of illusion has finally begun to tear. According to the latest data, an industry once celebrated as China's future has now fallen into the same condition as the real estate sector did a few years ago, namely overproduction, accumulating debt, and fabricated sales created through bookkeeping and accounting maneuvers.
From now on, I'll never trust any car sales data again. I used to think everyone in the world must be rich. Whenever a new model came out, cars worth hundreds of thousands of yuan would get tens of thousands of orders in just 1 hour. That's all we ever heard. But now I finally get it. Those first numbers on the graph were completely fabricated. Most of the explosive sales figures manufacturers announce these days are pure fakes. The goal is to manipulate public opinion and make it look like everyone's fighting to buy one. That way, consumers feel like they've snagged a hot car. Company bosses are over the moon, and the whole industry is putting on an act of fake prosperity. Right now, faking sales data has become an everyday routine across the entire auto sector.
In September 2025, sales of BYD, the flagship of China's electric vehicle sector, stopped at just 396,000 units, a 5.5% decline year-on-year. This marked the first monthly decrease since February 2023. For the entire third quarter, sales also fell by 2.1%, the first decline in the past 5 years. Production dropped sharply as well, totaling 406,000 units, an 8% decline from the previous year. What is particularly noteworthy is that the company lowered its annual sales target from 5.5 million units to 4.6 million. A single revision cut the target by as many as 900,000 units. That the company opted for such a slowdown during what should be the peak sales season indicates that BYD's management is fully aware of the collapse in actual demand. At the same time, the company has implemented substantial price reductions for both hybrid and pure electric vehicles. The fact that China's largest manufacturer has been forced into a price-cutting war suggests that the entire industry is already nearing the limit of survival.
没想到烂尾楼下来是烂尾车，新能源的烂尾车。
I never thought that after all the half-built abandoned apartments, we now have e-cars dumped halfway. Today, these rotting-tail new energy vehicles have become a nightmare for millions of owners. According to the latest stats, the bankrupt new energy car makers over the past decade have screwed over millions of owners. Once the company collapses, parts supply stops dead. Service centers shut down one by one. And you can't get it fixed even if you beg. Even insurance companies refuse to touch these cars anymore. They say the risk is way too high and they're done. A car you dropped 100 or 200,000 yuan on just turns into a rotting tail wreck. Just count them. Back in 2018, there were 487 new energy vehicle makers sprouting up nationwide. But now more than half have already bitten the dust. And according to global research firms, by 2030, only about 15 brands will still be financially alive.
According to a report by the China Association of Automobile Manufacturers, China's retail automobile sales reached 16.54 million units from January to September this year, an 8% increase year-on-year. If this figure were accurate, it would mean that 1 in every 7 urban households purchased a new vehicle, yet such a ratio is hardly realistic amid an economic crisis. During the same period, more than 3 million restaurants nationwide closed, the price of mitai fell below 1,800 yuan, millions of households became unable to service their mortgages, and banks were flooded with foreclosed properties. In an economy where people cannot even pay their housing loans, how could they continue buying new cars one after another? The answer lies in inflated sales reports. Many manufacturers and dealerships register fake license plates, insure the vehicles themselves, and ship them out as used cars with 0 kilometers mileage. The purpose is to qualify for bonuses or subsidies. Factories, dealerships, and local governments all have incentives to inflate the figures. If reported sales rise, governments receive recognition, banks keep lending, and this fabricated system can, at least on paper, avoid collapse.
你知道现在有哪些新能源汽车品？
Do you know how many new energy vehicle brands in China are actually turning a profit right now? In the first half of this year, domestic new energy vehicle sales hit 6.913 million units, with exports at 225,000. The numbers sound insane. But in reality, only a pathetic few manufacturers are actually profitable. Even the big dogs like Xiaomi, NIO, and BYD are still pushing sales knowing full well they're bleeding money. Tons of upstart brands are buried under mountains of losses, teetering on bankruptcy or already toast. When I dug into the company's financial reports, I uncovered a mind-blowing fact. There are only a measly 3 new energy vehicle brands in the black. Can you freaking believe that?
In 2023, China's automobile exports reached 6.41 million units, claiming the world's #1 spot. More than 2 million of these were electric vehicles, yet the world began to recognize the truth only after witnessing the sight of zero-kilometer cars covered in dust piled up in mountains across ports from Tianjin to Qingdao. Many of them had not actually been sold to consumers but were inventory vehicles disguised as exports in order to obtain export rebates and subsidies. Even more cars have been abandoned across Europe, the Middle East, and Central Asia, where some sites are now referred to as graveyards of Chinese EVs. In response, China's Ministry of Commerce announced a new regulation requiring special permits for electric vehicle exports beginning in 2026. If this were truly an industry worthy of being called a national pride, why would export restrictions be necessary? The answer is clear. Beijing does not want the world to know that millions of these exported vehicles have, in reality, never been sold at all.
China's automakers have been inflating sales figures and faking data to scam the public. But now the moment of truth has finally arrived. Just look at today's auto industry, nothing but over-the-top hype like. Hundreds of thousands of pre-orders in just 3 minutes. 500,000 orders in only 6 hours. How the hell can cars worth hundreds of thousands of yuan sell that fast? People who don't know better end up thinking, everyone else is loaded, I'm the only broke one who can't buy. But the truth is, tons of manufacturers have been cooking their sales numbers and screwing over consumers. Lately, even state media like Xinhua and Economic Daily couldn't keep quiet anymore. They straight up called it out. The sales bubble in the auto industry is way too severe. The whole country sells maybe 20 million cars a year. Yet we're not even halfway through 2025, and if you add up all the cumulative orders, the makers claim, it comes close to 100 million units. The faking is blatant. They're treating consumers like idiots and staging a fake prosperity show.
The success of China's electric vehicle industry has not been driven by technological capability but by more than a decade of subsidy-based policies. Since 2009, the Beijing government has injected tens of billions of dollars into domestic manufacturers, offering preferential access to land, tax exemptions, and even encouraging people to abandon gasoline cars under the banner of supporting domestic vehicles. When the real estate market began to collapse, local governments regarded the automobile industry as a new pillar to support GDP and rapidly built a series of virtual factories. By offering cheap land and preferential loans in exchange for annual production targets, national production capacity expanded to 55 million units per year, twice the level of actual demand. As a result, the electric vehicle sector descended into fierce chaos, with more than 120 startup manufacturers emerging, each calling itself China's Tesla. Yet in reality, most were little more than speculative fantasies, investment bubbles inflated by pitch decks and empty promises. A sardonic anecdote now circulates online, a single sketch, one slide titled "The Future of Chinese Mobility," and a few slogans about AI plus green energy plus national greatness can secure tens of millions of yuan in financing. The actual car? That's still under development. At present, many Chinese automakers are quietly marching toward death. Nida Motors has gone bankrupt, Baidu and Geely's joint venture brand has been forced into restructuring, and XPeng has openly acknowledged that unless we sell 3 million units a year, we cannot survive. Analysts predict that of the 129 existing EV and hybrid brands, only about 15 will still be alive by 2030. The retail price of Chinese-made EVs has already fallen below $10,000, yet consumer willingness to buy remains ice cold. From factories to dealerships, the entire supply chain is sinking into losses, yet none can afford to halt production, because halting production is effectively equivalent to halting breathing. As the chairman of a Chinese automaker put it, we are like people riding a bicycle. The moment we stop pedaling, we fall. But now, China's automobile industry is frantically pedaling all at once. What awaits ahead is a deep valley of debt and an abyss called massive overproduction.
The next carmaker to go bankrupt is about to emerge. Lately in China's new energy vehicle scene, one bombshell after another keeps dropping, and consumers are now terrified to even buy a car. Because no sooner do they buy one than the maker goes bust or gets swallowed up. So which one's gonna collapse next? From what we've seen before, collapsing companies all have three things in common. They keep squatting on state-owned assets over and over. Their sales are forever stuck in the mud. They have zero core tech, and their overall service quality just keeps tanking. Just take these three criteria and check the makers one by one. Any brand that ticks all three boxes is the next bankruptcy candidate.
Ironically, the success of China's electric vehicle sector is following exactly the same trajectory as the real estate industry. It begins with political ambition, expands through subsidies and credit, and ultimately ends with massive inventories and enormous non-performing loans. The structure is identical. From BYD to small startups, every company claims technological self-reliance, but in reality many are merely assembling imported components and labeling them as independently developed. The truly critical components, IGBT chips, sensors, and control software, are still purchased from the United States, Germany, and Japan. Meanwhile, Chinese consumers face squeezed incomes and mounting debt, leaving them with no capacity to buy cars. Yet this industry must continue its growth, not because of market demand, but because political quotas require it.
It's downright embarrassing, but Chinese carmakers have lost face overseas again. A batch of Chinese new energy vehicles exported to Australia could be hit with a 47 million AUD fine, equivalent to about $31 million US. Back home they scream every day about leading the world. But the second they step abroad, their real face gets exposed instantly. The reason? Suspected monopolistic practices in after-sales service and repairs. Specifically, they hid fault codes from day one, locked diagnostic software from third parties, and never released any technical data. Result? Independent garages couldn't touch them, and customers were forced to drag their cars to official 4S dealers. Australian owners looked at the repair bills and freaked out. The prices were absolutely insane. Worse, the manufacturer's customer service lines were completely unreachable. This tired old trick might get hushed up by the legal team back in China. But this is Australia. They don't let that kind of rip-off fly.
From the fantasy of surpassing Tesla to the pride of becoming the world's top exporter, China's automobile industry is, in reality, running atop a vast political machine. What they call technological innovation is nothing more than the skillful use of regulatory loopholes, inflated figures, and clever exploitation of subsidies. When the flow of funding stops and the government's sales rescue budget runs dry, the bright showroom lights will go out, leaving behind piles of dust-covered cars, laid-off workers, and millions of investors who have lost everything. China once dreamed that electric vehicles could replace the real estate bubble. But the reality is clear: as long as every industry depends on politics and debt, replacing bricks with lithium batteries leads to the same destination. It is nothing other than a self-destructive model of growth that consumes itself.